Some of the ones that come through the gap must have taken it over. But I would sincerely like to thank you all for coming and for making this such a big success. When this started out first, I seen the article that Matt Britton put into the Democrat, and I thought, how could I be at a pub here in Frosses for 26 years and not know that there was a man who founded, helped to found Glasgow Celtic, buried here. So I contacted Paul McGroary here, and we had a chat, and he reassured me that what Matt had written was right. And his testimony today, to see how many people have come along, and I want to thank each and every one of you for doing that. And especially want to thank Matt for putting it into the paper that got the whole thing rolling. And people will probably not believe, but I think it's possibly only 9 or 10 weeks ago since we started to put it on the ground. They had a lot of paperwork done. So thanks to everybody that helped out. I want to thank Father Eamon, albeit that he was late. Everybody knows him, it's not like him to be late. But I want to thank him for putting as much thought into the Mass. And also, he mentioned a story there about when we were over at Glasgow Celtic one time, myself and Jim Byrne and Thomas McGroary, and he was talking about a wee guy who a lot of people all know here, Andy McCann. And I have fond memories of Andy, and I actually thought of him today when Eamon was telling that story. We also have Thomas Pringle, TD's here today, and we have the Mayor of the Parish of Edinburgh, is James McGroary. And we have the Mayor of Mount Charles, recently elected, Michael Kerrigan. And we have had the Mayor of County Donegal here, and he laid a wreath earlier on. And thank you all for coming, and to all the other councillors and politicians, everybody that came along, thanks very much. I also want to thank Joe Harley and the people who done the tea and the people who put up the flags and the bunting and that. Without them, it adds to the whole occasion, so thank you for that. So, what we're doing, we have an order of speakers here, and the first person to speak will be Brendan Sweeney, and he's from the Celtic Grades Society.
It's great to see so many of you here today, as it shows that you love our club just as much as we love your country. The Celtic Grades Society are deeply honoured to be here today. As a group, we aim to cherish the memory of those whose contributions, large or small, have been the cornerstone of Celtic's remarkable story. As Celtic supporters, we believe that maintaining the memorials of Celtic players and important figures from our past is a real part of knowing your history. We often hear phrases like Celtic, more than a football club, or a club like no other. In days like today, we're reminded that supporting Celtic is much, much more than watching a game of football for 90 minutes. It's about remembering the roots and keeping the stories alive so that they can be passed down from generation to generation. When Joseph McGroary sang St Mary's Chapel in the East End of Glasgow on November the 6th, 1887, with the first Celtic committee, led by Brother Walfred, they had two aims. One was to form a football club to fund the poor children's dinner tables of the parishes of St Mary's, Sacred Heart and St Michael's. And the other was to provide a beacon for the downtrodden Irish who were huddled together in the slums of Victorian Glasgow, and to give them something to be proud of. From the most humble beginnings, a ghetto club formed by Irishmen to feed immigrant children grew into one of the biggest clubs in world football. But what was also born that day was a unique link between Celtic and Ireland, and Donegal in particular, that can never be broken. It runs through every strand of DNA of the club, and it is this link and our charitable roots which make us unique, more than a football club, a club like no other. On a personal note, I'm extremely proud to represent the Celtic Grades Society along with Paul McQuaid. Take away the Glasgow accent and I'm Donegal through and through. My father's from Ramelton, my mother's from Laville, where we spent our summer holidays for the first 16 years of my life before I discovered women and drink. So I must be the only person in history to have left Ireland to discover women and drink. And so the fact that we're standing here today is testament that Celtic Irishness is as relevant today as it was 125 years ago. The Celtic Great Society have marked the 125th celebrations by holding ceremonies at the resting places of Brother Walfrid, of Celtic legend Jimmy McGroary, of Celtic legend Charlie Shaw in New York, as well as organising a special mass on the exact date of our anniversary last November, when 1,200 people crammed into St Mary's Chapel, the birthplace of Celtic. This season, to close the celebrations, we're holding a ceremony at the grave of Willie Bailey in a couple of weeks, and we're erecting a Celtic cross in honour of the founding fathers in Obed Cemetery just a mile from Celtic Park. But we're delighted to add to this list the name of Joseph McGroary. He's the only Irishman on the first committee to be buried in Ireland. Today is a very proud day for Donegal. It's also a very, very proud day for Celtic. In closing, we'd like to thank the families, in particular Paul and Frank McGuire from Glasgow, Padder McGroary from Mount Charles, also Donny McIntyre from the Association of Donegal Celtic Supporters Clubs, and of course the local community in Frosses, as represented by Colin Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. I was just reminded there, we have had quite a number of Celtic players come to visit for us. Obviously, Paddy Bonner has been here a number of times. But the great Jimmy Johnson and Bernie Auld have been here, and Paul and Willie McStay, and Ross Wallace, Aidan McGeady. They've been here, but never in my mind, or in their mind, that did it cross that one of the founders of Glasgow Celtic was laid to rest here. It's a strange thought there. Now, we're going to have Paul McQuaid, and he's going to read a statement from Glasgow Celtic. We had requested a member of Celtic staff to come over, and Jim McGuinness was the person who was coming, but most of you know his wife had twins last night, so we have to forgive him for not being here. That's much more important. So Paul will read the statement.
This is a statement from Celtic Football Club Chief Executive Peter Lawler. I would like to send my best wishes to everyone taking part in today's ceremony to remember Joseph McGroary. I know Joseph was a very important part of the club and a member of Celtic's first ever committee. All within the Celtic family are sincerely grateful to Joseph for the contribution he made to Celtic over many years. Celtic's links to Ireland are well known and everlasting, and it is through people such as Joseph that these connections are celebrated and brought to life. While Joseph was born in Glasgow, I know he maintained close connections to Donegal throughout his life. He now rests in a place he loved and the county where his father was born. Joseph played a very important role in Celtic's first decade. He lived a full and interesting life, leaving for America and returning once again to Donegal in his final years. It is through the work of men such as Joseph that Celtic became what it is today. We honour this vision and this commitment sincerely and with real gratitude. While we once again take our place at the top of Scottish and European football and look to a bright and exciting future, events such as today remind us exactly how we got there and show us just how important our history is to everything that we do. I would like to take this opportunity also to applaud the work of the Celtic Grave Society. It has been a magnificent idea to mark and remember the contribution of so many people who have been important to Celtic, and the ongoing work of the Society is so impressive. I congratulate everyone involved for their work in this area. Everyone at the club offers our sincere best wishes to all of Joseph's family, members of the local community and our supporters there today. We remember Joseph with real appreciation and fondness as a true Celtic man.
very much, Paul. Donny McIntyre is going to speak on behalf of the Donegal Celtic Supporters Club Association, and without them, and Jerry McGroary and all their friends who have put together a fantastic display of Celtic memorabilia. I don't think you'll get this anywhere else at the present time. So, Donny.
Our Nifa, look flat in Celtic, again you shall like. As Urumsa, a Hitchin, and Honor Moore, Orage Garage, a Lord's or Knockout Special to Shop. They're Yanamudge Cutnier, because they're much honor da Joseph Francis McGroary. Then you dine the Fair Usla, a one Celtic, Sablaine Mila Upgate, as off the shack. Tam I go hinta Rodul, by Halaharan Shaw and you, Mar. The gap Enya, a will Massega Air Celtic. Be much excessive and new, a Talav Nifa. Reverend Father, my fellow Celtic supporters, and everybody here in this distinguished gallery, it is a singular honour that has fallen on me to give a short oration on this very special occasion, when we gather to remember and honour the memory of Joseph Francis McGroary, one of the founding fathers of Celtic. I was exceedingly proud to stand at his graveside today, because for all Celtic supporters, this is now holy ground. In 1887, when Brother Walford gathered that distinguished group together in St Mary's Hall in the impoverished East End of Glasgow, Joseph Francis McGroary was in attendance and stepped forward to serve on that first committee when, to quote W.B. Yeats, speaking of another momentous event, a terrible beauty was born. We should remember now, a century and a quarter later, that the motivation of Walford and the founding fathers was not hand and glory in the Scottish Cup or European adventure in the Champions League. It was much more basic, much more simple, and much more urgent at the time. The plaintive cry of hungry children and the collective sighs of a downtrodden people and the urgent need to alleviate both was what urged them on. The rest, to call the clichés history, Celtic took to the field, the supporters came, the children were fed, and the Irish diaspora of Glasgow and Scotland climbed off their knees with a green and white beacon of hope and pride to inspire them. The part played by Joseph Francis McGroary during these early formative years would have been immense. Sitting at Walford's side in committee, his legal expertise would have been invaluable. Indeed, it is likely that he vetted the very documentation that transformed ownership of a few nondescript acres beside a graveyard in Glasgow's East End to the Celtic Football and Athletic Company, and paradise was created. He was at the shoulder of Michael Davitt, the one-armed champion of the Irish peasantry, who led the Land League to victory in the Land War as he laid that first sod on Celtic Park, a sod carried from the spiritual home of Celtic in the west of Donegal. The men of the Rosses have come here today, bringing a sod from the exact same place as the one David laid so long ago. Comrades from the Rosses, you are most welcome, and Joseph McGroary would surely appreciate the significance of the gesture, as we all do. I don't want to linger too much longer on this. We had enough of a wedding today, but I would just like to say that for many years Joseph McGroary has lain here in Frosses, unremembered by the vast majority except his closest family. But we now know the story, and I'm pledged to you here today that we will raise a marker stone on Joseph McGroary's grave, that probably we'll have it hewn from the rock of the locality, and we will make sure that neither us nor ourselves nor future generations will ever forget him again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. We'll move on. And Paul Maguire, a man who really and truly, if he hadn't started to look for his family background, none of us would be here today. And probably the connection with Glasgow Celtic and Joseph McGroary wouldn't have been known. So give him an extra special welcome to Frosses. Paul.
you very much. I would just like to reiterate all the thank yous that Colin's already made, and I would actually like to thank Colin as well. Truly, without his effort to get today prepared from him, even on this side, and the rest of us in Glasgow, and Donnie as well, we've been meeting up with him at Celtic Park and getting things organised. So between us, we've kind of managed to get things sorted today. The weather didn't quite hold up for us, but I think we've managed through. So again, just like to thank everybody for their help. Really, why are we here is you know, Colin has said, and Donnie, why did this go unnoticed for 125 years? 6-7 years ago, my dad, my brother and I came over. All we knew was it was McGuire's from Inver. They left during the famine. We knew about Black and Tan attack that had taken place in Mount Charles. We had a letter that really kind of tried to piece that together and trying to understand the connection between the McGuires and the McGroarys. And essentially we spoke to people in Mount Charles, we spoke to the Gillespie brothers, we spoke to Helen Meehan, we spoke to Amy Monaghan, and everybody together has kind of helped us piece the kind of puzzle together. And what struck me was, as Joseph Francis McGroary, the facts we know is he was born in February 1865 in Milton in Glasgow, and he died 72 years later at the end of February 1937. He lived in Glasgow, he lived in New York, and he lived his final days in Mount Charles. His parents were Bernard and Mary McGuire, Bernard McGroary, Mary McGuire, who were Irish immigrants who came over during the Irish famine, and they married in Glasgow in 1855. They had 13 children, as I say, between the years 56 to 1877. Joseph was the middle child, and a lot of the children were dying in Glasgow. They were living in real poverty, real kind of difficult times for them. And essentially, the family decided, I think, to move back to Mount Charles, to help the family. The last born child, James, was born in Mount Charles in 1877. The two that stayed behind we know of were Joseph and his father Bernard McGroary. And Joseph was a student at St Aloysius College, so he went on to become a lawyer. He did he got a solicitor training course with Joseph Shaughnessy, who was also involved with Celtic, and had been possibly at school with Joseph, slightly older. And as I said, they lived together, and they managed to be looked after the McGuires. There was close family, the Reagans and the Lodds, and they all lived in the Milton area of Glasgow. And it would have been tough for them. But Joseph came good, he became a lawyer, he went to Glasgow University, and he was also a gifted child. The St Aloysius history books will tell you that he had many awards for his examinations, and he attended Glasgow University. When he was accepted to the Law Society in 1887, it documented that he was, I think, one of the highest pass marks of anybody ever to sit the exam. So that in 1887 he was accepted into the Law Society in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, and he became a lawyer in Glasgow. 1888 was the next year. It was a busy year for him. He married Catherine Cannon of Drumkeelan, and married in Mount Charles. And as has been mentioned, that year he was part of the first Celtic committee as well. The next decade, Joseph Francis McGroary was a well-known person around Glasgow. He stood in the Barony Parish Council